right, right? Go ahead. Good morning, everybody. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is our regular business meeting of Tuesday, January 20th, 2015. We'll begin with call to order and then the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Bloomfield, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Honored. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There she is. We're saved. Item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Item 4.1, correspondence. Do we have any correspondence to come before this commission?
Yes, we do. Justin Holmesgrove submitted a letter requesting streetlights on 2 areas of Island Lake Drive, and Gertie Schreier submitted a letter of concern regarding the sewer charges in Lakeland Village.
Thank you. Item number 4.2, news release, re-advertising for the 2015 through 16 Transportation Improvement Program, Citizens Advisory Panel. I didn't see her, so I guess that's you. For the record, it says Melissa, and she is not here. So this.
Headed down here. I think they're over talking to the prosecutor. Let's see how well prepared we are. Here we go. Good staff. Good staff. Good morning, Commissioner Brian Matthews, Mason County Public Works. I'm here today with a news release regarding the re-advertising of the 2015-2016 Transportation Improvement Program Citizens Advisory Panel, aka TIPCAP. Mason County is re-advertising for citizen volunteers to serve on the Transportation Improvement Program Citizens Advisory Panel. The mission of TIPCAP is to represent citizen transportation interests throughout Mason County for all modes of travel during the development of the 6-year Transportation Improvement Plan. The TIPCAP will review and analyze Mason County's transportation needs and present their recommendations to the Mason County Board of County Commissioners. Members serve a 2-year term with the first meeting in January of 2015. Mason County is seeking interested citizens from Mason County District Number 2, the Belfair, Allen, and Hoodsport Union urban growth areas, and truck freight industry to apply who represent transportation interest as spelled out in the current resolution establishing the advisory panel. Interested persons may apply by obtaining an application from the Mason County Commissioner's Office, 411 North 5th Street, Shelton, or by calling 360-427-9670, extension 419, or from the county website at www.co.mason.wa.us. Applications will be accepted until membership meets the current resolution requirements. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
News release, flu season. Vicki?
Good news.
Thank you, Commissioners. Vicki Kirkpatrick, Director, Mason County Public Health and Human Services. And unlike the football season, the flu season is not one to celebrate. In fact, we want to try to mitigate and prevent to the extent that we can. So we have a news release here from Dr. Yu. The flu's here. Are you noticing a lot of coughing and sneezing around town? We can all help stop the spread of the flu. Cover your cough, wash your hands, and stay home when you're sick. You may have heard that the flu vaccine is not always protecting people this year. The flu vaccine protects you from a few of the common strains of influenza. Some of this year's reported cases, though, are due to strains not included in the vaccine. However, here in Washington, 2/3 of the influenza cases have been caused by strains that are included in the vaccine. Getting your flu shot will give you a better chance of being protected if you're exposed to influenza. No one wants to be sick and be stuck at home. Mason County Public Health and Human Services needs your help to protect our community this flu season. There are easy ways that you can fight the flu and help protect others. Be on the lookout for symptoms, which can include sore throat, fever, achiness, and fatigue. Help reduce the spread of germs by covering your nose and mouth when you sneeze or cough, washing your hands often with soap and warm water, and avoiding contact with others. And most importantly, if you find yourself sick with the flu, please stay home. Remaining home for at least 24 hours after the fever is gone will help minimize exposure of others to the vaccine. With these simple steps, we can all do our part to help reduce the chance of spreading influenza. For more information, contact Mason County Public Health and Human Services at 360-427-9670, extension 400, or from Belfair 360-275-4467, extension 400. And remember, cover your cough, wash your hands, and stay home when you're sick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. I'll add one more thing. Please, 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 announce you're sick before you shake my hand. It's amazing how that works. Okay, thank you very much. Next, we're going to move on to item number 5, which is the open forum for citizens' input. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak on any issue that you would like that is not on the agenda. If it is on the agenda, we will ask that you wait and speak about it at that time. Even if it's on the action agenda, you can have it taken off for a special discussion. But at this point, if it's not on the agenda and you would like to speak to the community or the commission, I would ask that you raise your hand. And again, take no more than 5 minutes, 15 minutes total for everybody. That being said, is there anybody who would like to speak this morning? Conley. Please announce your name and where you're from when you come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Conley Watson. I live at 140 East Fox Lane. My question goes back to November 3rd, 2014, on the agenda number 3, which I have right here, which it says, Department of Community Development, Public Health, Barbara Atkins, Vicki Kirkpatrick, Aquifer mapping. Now I asked about this, this is almost 90 days, next month on the 3rd it will be 90 days. But I've been paying a close attention to the paper. Oil groups back the EPA on ocean acidity. And what they're saying is there's some here in Maine, acid rules the waters. It's medication going into the treatment plants which dump into the, there's one here on Great Lakes where they, diabetics. And I just think we should be paying close attention on this aquifer thing so that we will be ahead of this. Because what it is, it's, I can give you these 3 things here, and 2 of them were in today's paper. There was another one here on how to treat medications. You don't put them down the toilet or down the drain because they will get into the treatment plant, which dumps into the sound here. And also, they've been paying close attention from the Mexican border to the Canadian border on the marble marlet. Because of the acidity, they think that is what's killing the birds that go along there. And they've been warning, they're not threatened yet. They are threatened, but they're not on the endangered species list as at this time. But they're paying real close attention, and it just seems that this popping up, and I've been paying very close attention to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Conley. With that being said, it is important that people do realize not to dump their medications down into the sewers and the septics. We have receptacles throughout the county. Vicki, where are those at? Do you know where they're located?
One is here in Shelton outside the sheriff's office, and the other one is outside Fire District 2 in the north end.
Okay, outside Fire District 2 in the north end and outside the sheriff's office down here in Shelton. I'm saying that because of this goes out live, so anybody that's out there and hears this, please keep that in mind, and they'd be more than happy to take them from you if you would rather take it there, and we'd appreciate if you did. Are there any other citizens who would like to speak? Commissioner Bloomfield.
Commissioner.
Oh, your past commissioner, former Commissioner Bloomfield.
Or the late almost here. I was almost late this morning.
Didn't like that one.
Steve Bloomfield, 391 Southeast Don Road, Shelton, the Camelchie Point area. I got a phone call last night from a gentleman I never met before, from Commissioner Netherland's district up in Belfair, regarding a marijuana operation he's trying to get permitted. And apparently, and I know nothing about it, all I've got is what he told me. He was in the permit process, did a change of address, not a physical change, just an address, new post box thing. And apparently the permit's being held up because of that. And that doesn't seem quite fair. That's a clerical thing, not a permit changing footprint or usage problem. That's strictly a clerical thing. And if it's something that could be addressed, it would, I'm sure Ms. Atkins probably knows much more about that. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We need hookups for that sewer system.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't heard about this. Barbara, do you know anything about this one, or?
I'll get back to you.
Thank you. Okay.
I just was going to make a comment, if I could, on that subject. That there was a news program last night, I don't know what channel it was talking about the high-profile bill in Olympia that's being generated by siting of marijuana facilities in Snohomish County in rural areas. So there is a bill in Olympia that's quite profile that prohibits any siting in rural residential areas in Snohomish County.
Prohibiting them, or?
Yes. Not just Snohomish County, but I'm sure it's statewide, but it's originating out of Snohomish County.
I suspect it'll have a grandfathering or
Yes,
vesting clause in it.
It does.
Well, it appears, watching the news, that there's a glut of extra marijuana throughout the state, which I thought was interesting when I saw that on the news, that there's so much of it, they're not able to dispose of it. So, interesting how it works. Especially since in the beginning they were talking about how there was scarcity, yeah, just keeps changing. That being said, is there anybody else who would like to speak to the commission or the public on any item that's not on the agenda? This is your opportunity if you would like to speak to the commission on any item that is not on the agenda. Okay. If anybody else? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to item number 6, which is the adoption of the agenda.
Chairman, I move that we adopt the agenda as presented today, and I'd like to add, if we could, under our other business department heads and elected officials, if we could just exchange a little information about the wastewater facility in Belfair.
Mr. Chair, I would second the agenda as amended.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda with the amendment of adding the discussion of wastewater facility in Belfair under item 10.1. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Item number 7, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we approve the January 5th, 2015 briefing minutes and the January 6th regular meeting minutes.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and seconded for the approval of the January 5th, 2015 meeting minutes and the January 6th, 2015 regular meeting minutes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item number 8. This is the approval of the action agenda. This is, under the action agenda, all items will be enacted by one motion unless a commissioner or citizens request that it be removed from the action agenda and considered for a separate vote. At this point, we will go ahead and read the different items on the action agenda, and afterwards, you'll be given your opportunity to ask your questions or have it taken off. With that being said, I will read 8.1 through 8.4. Commissioner Sheldon, if you would read 8.5 through 8.8, and Commissioner Jeffries, 8.9 through 8.12. Item number 8.1, approval to schedule a public hearing for February 10th, 2015 at 9:30 a.m. to consider amendments to Title 17, adding new Chapter 17.90 Multifamily Housing Tax Incentive Program to Mason County Zoning Code. Item number 8.2, approval to set a public hearing on Tuesday, February 10th, 2015 at 9:30 a.m. to consider amending Resolution 58-13, increasing the amount awarded to eligible veterans to $800 and to the catastrophic award to $300 per calendar year from the Veterans Assistance Fund as recommended by the Veterans Advisory Board. Item number 8.3, approval of 2 resolutions closing all of California Cutoff Road portion of California Road and all Four Corners Road from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, January 31st, 2015, and one closing on March 7, 2015 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the test run and race day. Performance Rally will be sponsoring a car rally event. This rally will start at California Cutoff Road and end at Four Corners Road. Item number 8.4, approval to update the signature sheet on the MACECOM 2015 through 2016 operations contract E15-032 to include the 2015 chair of the Board of Mason County Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, 8.5, approval of the resolution to accept the affidavit of the Mason County Treasurer and cancel the uncollectible personal property taxes. 8.6, approval of the board to the acknowledgement of receipt of the Treasurer's refund report to support the refunds made to taxpayers during the year 2014. 8.7, approval of warrants, claims clearing fund warrant numbers 801-7450 through 801-7611 in the amount of $395,406.89. And 8.8, approval for the board to authorize Public Works, Utilities, and Waste Management to go through the required procurement process to select and enter into an agreement for ground monitoring services at the Mason County landfill and an agreement for the design of a grinder pump for the North Bay lift station. Now, Mr. Chairman, that may mean groundwater monitoring services. Brian, is that correct?
It should be groundwater.
So I'll read that again. Enter into an agreement for groundwater monitoring services at the Mason County landfill.
8.9, approval to appoint James Naismith to represent Commissioner District 1, Neil Winders to represent Commissioner District 3, Mark Carlson to represent the City of Shelton UGA, and Mike Oliver to represent Transit, and Philip Wolf to represent Bicycle Pedestrian to the 2015-2016 Transportation Improvement Program Citizens Advisory Panel TIPCAP, and authorize Public Works to re-advertise for additional members. 8.10, approval to authorize the chair to sign the waiver of payback letter to County Road Administration Board for County Road Project 1564, the North Island Drive Road Realignment and Culvert Replacement Project. That's RAP project number 2307-01. The project is canceled. 8.11, approval for the board to authorize the Director of Facilities to sign the change order proposal number 2 for $53,371.60 to the contract for the modification of the Direct Supervision Unit, DSU, and further authorize the Sheriff's Office to spend $17,785.45 out of SWIFT and certain funding. These modifications are needed for construction of the video conferencing booths. 8.12, approval of the Veterans Assistance Fund applications for food, total amount of $450, utilities, total amount of $926.73, and housing, $1,597 for a total of $2,973.73, as recommended by the Veterans Assistance Committee.
Thank you very much. With that being said, is there anybody in the audience who might have questions on any of the items that are on the action agenda that would help them decide whether to have it removed for a separate vote? Commissioners, any questions?
Chairman,
Yes.
811, we'd like a little discussion on.
So you'd like it pulled off for a separate vote?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other items that the community would like pulled off for a separate vote?
Mr. Chair, 8.6, please, for a separate vote.
Any other items? Commissioners, any items you'd like taken off for a separate vote? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda, or to approve the action agenda with items 8.11 and 8.6 removed for a separate vote.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve all items on the action agenda except for 8.6 and 8.11.
Second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the action agenda as written with the exception of item number 8.6 and 8.11, which will be taken off for a separate vote. Any discussion?
I do want to share with the public that item 8.1, our multifamily housing tax incentive program, we've had some briefings, and the language of the proposal will somewhat change from what we had seen at briefing. So if you're interested in this topic, please take a look onto the website when it's posted. The actual ordinances we will consider and adopt.
Further discussion?
Also, very excited by the fact that we have 8.3 of an organization coming in to do some road rally racing. I think that Mason County could potentially see this as a interesting tourist and economic boom here in Mason County, not just with Bridge Motorsports, but with road rally racing and our fine roads. And thank you very much to Public Works for working with the proponent.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. Item number 8.6, approval of the board to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of the Treasurer's refund report to support the refunds made to taxpayers during the 2014 year. Madam Treasurer, would you mind speaking on this?
Good morning, Mason County Treasurer Lisa Frazier. So each year, under RCW 8469020, the treasurer shall make a report to the commissioners by the first Monday in February of those refunds that were made during the previous year. In that list, it's going to include the name of the person receiving the refund, the amount of the refund, and the reason for the refund. So before you today is that acknowledgement that you received that report. And then have to answer any questions.
Tom?
Yes, Madam Treasurer. I was wondering, how do you confirm the hardship and disability senior citizens exemption? Is there any enforcement? Can you talk a little bit about the process? Is it just filling out a form, or do you actually follow up and see if it's verified that they do comply with the regulations for an exemption?
So the oversight of the senior and disability exemption falls to the assessor's office, and so I would let Melody speak to that more. The corrections that come to the treasurer's office have all been approved and done through the assessor's office first before they come to us. So if there's no oversight on the treasurer's office side, that would all be approved and done before they come to us for the physical refund.
Okay.
But I could let Mel speak to that process.
While she's still there,
Yeah.
may I ask a question that goes directly to you? Could you please explain to myself and the public what a manifest error, one of the reasons for the refund is manifest error? Could you explain what that means?
Again, that would be
Okay.
something on the assessor's side, so I'll let Mel speak to those two things.
Thank you.
All right.
Melody Peterson, County Assessor. As far as the senior exemption, they have to bring their confirmation of their income level to us, and what we do is we look at their income tax returns, and there's a specific amount that we can use and they can't use. If we have to ask them to bring in bank statements that show how much is deposited into their account through their Social Security or SSI or whatever their income is, we validate that. So there is quite a number of steps that we go through to make sure to the best of our ability that they do comply with everything that is asked and that they are eligible for that senior exemption.
Do you do that for everyone on the title?
We do that for the person that is asking for the exemption, and there are other considerations that come into play if they have someone living with them and whether that person contributes to their income. We do the best we can to make sure that they do qualify.
You don't have anyone signed for this particular?
We do. We have one of our clerks that keeps control of all the applications, and we send out new applications, so they have to re-verify every so many years, or if there's questions come up, if we get a return envelope back that shows that they have a different address than what they applied for the exemption on, then we go ahead and contact them and try to find out why that happened, and we do take them off if they don't qualify at any point in time. And
that can be also challenged to the Board of Equalization. So if they feel that we're being unfair to them, they can go to the Board of Equalization and present their case there also, so.
Do you see an increase in the amount of people asking for an exemption over the last 5 years?
Not really.
No.
We run over 2,000, I would say between 23 and 25, and it fluctuates, but not a lot, no. It hasn't been like a huge amount of applications in the last few years. It's been pretty steady.
I'd like clarification on two of the questions that Mr. Davis asked. So you say every couple of, or every few years, or you didn't give it,
Right.
by law, how often are we supposed to verify their income?
It used to, when we were on the 4-year cycle of revaluation, we would send them out every 4 years. So now that we only physically inspect the property every 6 years, we've gone to that 6-year cycle that I'm having a little bit of thought process with, that maybe that should be more than every 6 years, because that just seems like a long period of time. So there are, like I indicated, if we get an envelope back that shows a different address on it, we will pursue that. Of course, you know, sometimes the neighbors come in and say something, and we'll, if we feel it's valid, we'll look into that. It's often, we have more problems with the statewide, as people are claiming exemptions in more than one county, so we all try to coordinate a little bit, and we'll call other counties to see if they're looking for an exemption in that county also. But I know that the employee in our office that does a real thorough job of making sure that they are getting that exemption only because they qualify.
So it doesn't stay in state law how often you verify income?
When you, at least every 6 years.
At least every 6, okay. And then the question about, do you check the income of all people who are on the title of the property? You said you check people if they're living there, but...
Right. This would be if usually it's just a couple or a single, because it's mostly senior exemption. We do have a number of disabled exemptions. And the way that the policy reads is that only one person has to be eligible that can apply in that household. So we look at their income. And what we do look at also is the contributing income from anyone else that resides in that household. And that's just basically, they say this person gives me $300 a month to stay here, or whatever. They pay half the rent or something like that. So that's how that works.
I have a question for you, Ms. Chairman. Well, I think this number might be very low, but I'm going to ask you, what do you think is the percentage of those that qualify for this exemption?
Of those that apply?
No, just of taxpayers in Mason County.
Oh. That's a hard one, I have to look at.
I think it would be very low, doesn't it?
It is low, yes.
It is very low, because
I mean,
it's a high threshold to meet.
It is, yes.
Because
It can be
you're
difficult.
not only is your income taken into consideration, but also your medical is not. You could have extremely high medical costs.
Yeah. The only thing that you can deduct from your income for medical is anything that you have to pay. For your prescriptions, it's anything you have to pay out of pocket. So, yeah, it's not easy to get on the program. And when you figure that we got over 56,000 parcels that potentially have residents on them, when you're looking at 2,300 people on the program, that's a very low percentage.
So that gets
2,300.
2,300.
I would have to look that up because it does fluctuate.
Could you do that for us?
So that would be, even if there was 2,000 and you had 50,000 parcels, that would only be, what, 4%?
Yeah, it's very low.
It's quite low.
Well, I would just note that the income is $35,000 or less annually, so.
And there are 3 different tiers of exemption that you can qualify for, depending on your income.
And the state hasn't changed that in years.
No, they haven't, and I know that gets brought up, but the problem that comes up is the level of income in the different counties, where you're in King County or you're in Ponderay County. There's a difference in what's a livable income, and I know our assessors group has discussed that maybe that should be tied into median income in each county.
Right.
Do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Very good. Thank you.
Oh.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, Testimony. Is there anybody who'd like to speak for or against? Please.
Thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. Tom Davis, 170 West Bushy Road. I wanted to bring some emphasis, focus on when there's $300,000 worth of exemptions, property tax exemptions, should not go by the by without some questions being asked. About 6 months ago, Phil Franklin, who does the assessment for timberlands and everything, I asked him at a public meeting here, how many taxable property, what's the percentage of exemptions of all taxable property in Mason County? He said probably 70% or thereabouts. That's a lot of exemptions. We have $7 billion worth of taxable property. That doesn't mean a doggone thing until it's actually taxed. I don't mean to be the tax cop here. I mean for everyone to carry their full share. And along those lines, I'd just like to state that we are not highly taxed. Our property taxes are not high in Mason County. We fall pretty much in the middle. There are 17 counties in the state that have a higher property tax than us, 18 that have lower, and 3 that have exactly the same. So we're reasonably taxed. Our problem comes because we have low property values, which is not necessarily a good thing, because you don't attract people of high income with low property values. You attract people of low and moderate income with low property values, people who can afford to do that. A healthy community has a balance of this. What we don't want to see is have a community that's lopsided one way, so the exemptions are such that we suffer for trying to fund our services during July. So that was the purpose when we figured our budget. That was the purpose of me trying to bring some focus to this. Also worthy of mention is that there are 18 categories that one of these exemptions, property tax exemptions, can fall under. And one of them, and the one that I thought that actually made the most sense, of course, was the decision that was made by the Board of Equalization. But there was only one property that fell under that category for an exemption. The rest of them some of them were a bit surprised to me, as I think they are to you. And so I would just encourage, since we are hiring people, a special company to go out and chase down people who are suspected of maybe not really having legitimate workers' comp, filing workers' comp complaints and so on, then it would just seem right that we would not just check this off without having some enforcement and some verification that all the requirements are being met, so we all carry our equal weight as far as the tax burden. No one likes to do it, but it's particularly heavy when you feel that some of us are carrying more tax burden than others. That was the purpose of my bringing attention to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further testimony? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion if you're so inclined.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve for the board to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of the Treasurer's refund report to support the refunds made to taxpayers during the year 2014.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
It has been moved and seconded for the approval of the board to sign the acknowledgement of receipt of the Treasurer's refund report to support the refunds made to taxpayers during the 2014 year. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the treasurer and the assessor coming today and giving us a tutorial about this. I don't think that there's a widespread understanding of how it works, but I thank you very much for bringing this forward and keeping and using your staff so effectively to make sure that it is evenly enforced across the board. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. Next up is item 8.11, approval for the board to authorize the Director of Facilities to sign the change order proposal number 2 for $53,371.60 to the contract for the modification of the Direct Supervision Unit, DSU, and further authorize the Sheriff's Office to spend $17,785.45 out of swift and certain funding. These modifications are needed for the construction of the video conferencing booths. Is there anybody here that would like to do a presentation on it first?
Bill Kenny, Sport Services Director. Just a little bit of background for the sake of our citizens. The video conferencing is a concept that's in place in many of the courts and judicial systems in Washington State. And it's a concept whereby there's a electronic link between the jail and the courtroom. And through that link, which is actually video and sound, you can do arraignments of inmates that are held within the jail without physically transporting that inmate or those groups of inmates to the courtroom itself. And most often the public defender's office or their legal counsel is with the inmate either through the court or in the jail itself. We were quite excited to get this going as a concept, and it became much more important in Mason County, particularly last year, where we had some problems with the amount of corrections officers, because I think you can appreciate that every time you have to transport a prisoner, or there's one or two of our corrections officers that have to actually leave the facility to take them to that court. And on a given day, there could be 3 or 4 courts operational in addition to the other problems. So the judges were quite excited about this. Corrections side was quite excited about the opportunity. And in addition to the staffing issues, there's the safety issues as well. There's really 2 parts to this endeavor at Mason County. One part is putting in the electronics, which would include the video equipment on both ends, jail and court side. And the other part was building a discrete area within the jail where and this is what we call video booths. So a inmate defendant can be sitting in the booth with legal representation and have privacy and confidentiality as required by law protected while they're still remaining within the facility. So this was very important. We seized an opportunity here because there was some remodeling going on within the jail, and with that, the corrections staff were highly cooperative in working with us and dedicating a part of what has been previously known as the rec room for these video conference booths. We were also lucky in that as to the timing, because there was already remodeling occurring, and the corrections staff was quite concerned that if we went out in the future, we would have continuing disruption of corrections and safety issues within the jail. This proposal before the commissioners today is to pay for those booths. Despite the fact that we have leveraged having contractors already on site, the cost is a little higher than we originally hoped. This proposal would have $53,000 coming out of REIT dollars, which is appropriate, and $17,000 out of Swift and Certain. Our budget manager and director or manager of emergency services met with the sheriff's office because the sheriff's about this $17,000 in particular, because the sheriff's office was very keen on the safety issue attendant with being able to have control room access and security, and have the control room control each of the doors for the video booths, so that each of the defendants would be secure. So this would accomplish this remodeling on the jail side. Questions?
Are there any questions? Commissioners?
I have one, couple. It says change order number 2. Was there a change order number 1?
It's for the proposal number 2, and this was the contractor's proposal.
Okay, it's not, this
It's
is
not
the
a
first, this is the first change order.
It's the first change order consistent with our previous resolutions, yes.
Okay, and from the material, I see that you mentioned it's from real estate excise tax number 1, 53,000. Is that budgeted?
No, no. The good news in that regard, though, Commissioner, and I'm glad you brought that up, is one of the things that we are starting to see is some improvement in the anticipated revenues that coming out of real estate sales. So the REIT, I think, as Budget Manager Pinter reported previously to the commissioners, the REIT dollars are likely to be slightly higher than what was in the budget for 2015.
Okay, but this wasn't budgeted. What's the total cost again of the project?
The total cost is going to be about $220,000.
220. Okay, and then just the last thing is a comment I have about the item. We talk about swift and certain funding. Those swift and certain are not adjectives. These are nouns. Swift and certain is a particular program.
Yes.
And I didn't want the public to be confused to think that funding is often swift and certain around here.
It is slow and deliberate.
Slow and deliberate.
Are there any further questions for staff? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and take some testimony. Undersheriff?
Good morning, Commissioners, thank you. The question,
Undersheriff, please.
Under Sheriff Barrett, Mason County Sheriff's Office. We agree with everything that Director Kenny has stated. We're in complete support of this program for the swift, effective, and safe administration of both our corrections officers and the court's video rank system. But in the meeting I had with Mr. Pinner and Ross McGowl on the 14th, we talked of one of the options for the Sheriff's Office funding the $17,000 portion would be swift and certain. But I also reminded them at that time that that's a $400,000 revenue, that unless we get a budget adjustment to that $400,000 for this amount, that money's already been earmarked. So that's the mechanism we're trying to get clarification on. Otherwise, we need to go back and look at other resources within our budget, which is either carrying custody or some other thing. So we wanted clarification, was it the board's intent to do an adjustment of that dollar amount to that swift and certain, so when the revenues come in, we can expand out of that line.
I can tell you my understanding. It was my understanding through our conversation at the time that we would expect that the swift and certain numbers, although budgeted at $400,000, would be exceeding that amount, and so we'd be changing the budget to, or we actually didn't get into the discussion of changing the budget at that time, but that it would be exceeding that amount, and that would be the discussion that we were having, where the funding would come from above the $400,000. That's the way I understood it, but Commissioner Jeffries, you were there.
Well, we did not have a discussion about doing a budget adjustment on swift and certain, just that those monies were there. And it definitely needs to be a discussion.
The only reason I bring this up is we would anticipate all things going well. If our staff is hired, if completion of the facility is done in a timely manner, if we're able to get the appropriate number of swift and certain beds without compromising the judge's ability to sentence in county holds, we should be able to meet that number or more. I don't want to commit to it saying we may not be able to do that yet without an adjustment. And if we do, then it's already done. If we do an adjustment now and we do exceed it, then the money's already spent appropriately. So those were the cautionary notes that we were concerned with at the time.
Are you suggesting we do the budget adjustment now? Is that what you're suggesting?
I would suggest that we do that. That way, if we fully anticipate and do realize those swift and certain revenues exceeding $400,000 as budgeted, then it's already appropriate to spend that money for this video arraignment system out of our budget.
For clarification, you're suggesting that we make a budget adjustment both on the revenue and expenditure side?
For swift and certain, if we're going to use those dollars to realize this program.
Well, that is definitely something we can bring back to our finance or budget.
But we are in absolute support of the work that's been done, and we believe this is the best thing going forward. This puts us on parallel with just about every other surrounding correctional institution, so it's a good thing.
I have a quick question.
Undersheriff?
So I was somewhat surprised that we would want to have these doors locked, in that they're already in a locked facility. And can you explain why that added measure of safety is?
We always assume the worst, and if in one of those rooms, something goes sideways and that particular person is not happy with the outcome and they become disruptive, we have the ability to control that by securing it and then moving the people to remove that individual as needed. Also, if we have a lockdown within our facility and we have attorneys there with their clients, we can lock down those attorneys while we're dealing with another disturbance.
So that's my concern. If there's a situation within the booth itself and they're in there with an attorney and you lock them in there with the attorney, I fear for the safety of the attorney. How do we assure their safety as well?
There is no absolute 100% assurance. We hope and pray for the best, but if we did this in an open air environment, there's no, an attorney walking through our jail is assuming some risk just by the very nature of the population that we serve there. So we do the best and we put the best limits we can, but without that locking device, we lose control of that room, we lose control of that ability either to control what's coming out or what's going into that room. Because you gotta remember, this attorney may represent other people as well in that facility who may or may not be happy with that individual. So our correctional staff and within PREA standards and industry standards and best practices are doing what is recommended by other facilities, and that is to be able to have a centralized control. If you don't lock it, then you don't control it. That's the short and simple. We could go into a lot of different scenarios, but that, we prefer to be able to lock down and section off and cordon down portions of our facility to be able to administer the effective, safe movement of people.
Further questions, Commissioner? Questions? Thank you very much. Bill, you had a comment?
Yeah, just one comment to build on the discussion of the undersheriff. One of the positives that we have talked about is that in the timing is that the DSU unit is coming online, and that actually increases our beds. So this, given all of the assumptions that the undersheriff was good about pointing out, this does increase the likelihood we may actually have an increase in SWIFT and certain dollars for 2015 as well, because of the additional number of beds. The second point to Commissioner Jeffrey's question is we have had extensive conversations with the Public Defender's Office, and they've been involved in the process all along. And it is, to this point, is their choice and wish to be in the booth with in representation of their one thing where there has been problems in some instances is there's some need to have a locking door, but if it's not the control room monitored locking door, there's been instances where defendants have found a way to jam the door, sticking something in the locking mechanism or so forth. So it was generally held through the discussions with the subject matter experts that seemed to be the safest approach. In addition, the camera itself will provide the control room with some ability to see what's going on in that booth as an additional safety issue. And we're also in discussions about panic alarms for the booths.
So there will be a feed to the control room, a direct video feed of what's going on there as well?
Yeah, it's, what's needed though is to be able to shut off the audio so that the attorney can consult with their client confidentially.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question, probably for
Tom,
the other-
would you mind coming up?
Sorry, I just had a question for the undersheriff. I guess maybe I'm watching too many crime movies on TV. I thought the people who were incarcerated in these confined areas were manacled to a desk or some sort of stationary bolted object so you could so they couldn't act out. Is that, I guess, something correct in that?
Not in all cases. It depends on the individual and what they're being moved for, but in many cases they may have handcuffs on them, but we're not necessarily going to secure them to a stool or a bench.
Well, they're in the that's right. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Yes,
I just
Teresa,
wanted to
Teresa,
clarify-
could you please come up and,
Trace Eric, Administrative Deputy to the Sheriff. I just wanted to clarify that this item actually has two components. I spoke at length at the first one about the change order, and the modification is very much needed. The second part is the fact that unless we have the treasurer remit the amount out of the revenue line, the only way that we can expend the money, the SWIFT and certain monies are out of revenue line. And unless we directly expend out of that revenue line, which there's not a mechanism in place right now to do that, the budget would have to be amended, and the appropriate way to do that would be the revenue is amended and the expenditure is amended, and like we do with when we have grant awards and we have other things. So I just wanted to clarify that because that can get kind of confusing. And this particular item had actually two components.
thank you. Further comments, questions? Hearing none, if you are so inclined, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the Board of County Commissioners approve item 8.11.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded for the Board of County Commission to approve item number 8.11, approval for the board to authorize the Director of Facilities to sign the change order proposal number 2 for $53,371.60 to the contract for the modification of the Direct Supervision Unit, DSU, and further authorize the Sheriff's Office to spend $17,785.45 out of SWIFT and certain funding. These modifications are needed for construction of the video conferencing booths. Discussion?
Just,
No,
go ahead.
I'm very excited about having this happen. And we talked about the issues of being able to have our jail staff be able to be more efficient, but I also see this as also a courtroom management, time management option and opportunity, in that the transporting of prisoners does take quite a bit of time and does have a lot of wait time for folks. So I think this is just, thank you very much for everybody for bringing the video conferencing to us, and I'm so glad that we're able to do this.
Commissioner?
I'm going to vote for this, but I still have concern about the additional cost. If it's not budgeted, I think we need to make sure that it is budgeted, that we make some adjustments. So.
Agreed. I also am in favor of this. This has been a pretty fantastic thing that we're doing for the public and our budget overall in the future. This is going to end up saving us money. Taking the time and having a couple of corrections officers walk them across the street, stay with them, walk them back, all the time that's invested in that, and the risk of any time you take them out there in the public and across the street that things can happen, is definitely something that we need to think about. By doing this, we take away some of that risk. We also help protect the officers themselves, because they're not going to be put in that situation. And like I said, overall, the cost savings will be beneficial in the future. With that being said, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. We will move on to item number 9, which is the public hearing. We are going to open the public hearing, continued from 11/25/2014, to consider a rezone of Canolke Properties. Staff Alan Borden. Did I say it right?
Mr. Kanoki, or?
Canolke. Okay.
It's over here.
Yeah, today's public hearing is a continuation from your public hearing on November the 18th. Part of the discussion of this rezone was access from the property, which is 26.8 acres in size, is access from a private road easement. And there were several issues brought up by property owners along that easement. During the hearing on November the 18th, it was Mr. Kanoki had suggested some of the issues could be addressed by recording an easement on a property that's nearby, and he purchased in the middle of 2014. This rezone goes along Greenberg Lane, which is this private road, And the access passes several properties on the southern end of that road easement. And some of the issues that came up were had to do with creating additional residential development along the properties in the vicinity. So Mr. Kanoki did submit, I should say that on November the 18th, we continued the hearing to provide opportunity for Mr. Kanoki to provide the necessary documents, which would be a recorded easement. That easement has been recorded. It was turned into the county planning department. It's recorded through the auditor's office. And it accesses the property that was the subject of the rezone directly to Greenbrook Lane. So that was the chief reason for delaying your deliberation on the rezone request. So it's now submitted.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioner? Any questions from the public? Thank you. When we continued this, we did not continue with any stipulations, so that I can remember, would the applicant like to speak?
If there's any questions from people.
Okay.
I think it's pretty clear that we required ask that the easement be recorded, surveyed and recorded, and it appears to have been completed.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll close the staff report. Go into one more time public testimony. Any public testimony? Hearing none, we'll close public testimony and move to Commissioner deliberation.
Well, I appreciate Mr. Noki's effort to make his neighbors happy. And these can be very personal and very heated. And so I appreciate the fact that you did what you could to appease the neighbors and their concerns about extra traffic on the original easement. Have you punched the road in?
Say what?
Have you punched in the road?
Well, it was already somewhat cleared for utilities.
Okay.
So what really needs to be done is, maybe 150 feet needs to be gravel. So that's all that really needs to be done.
Okay, great.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion if you're so inclined.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the requested rezone number 14-01, which is a rezone of parcel number 2222-00-03060 from rural residential 20 to rural residential 10.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the request rezone number 14-01. I guess we did that. That's all it says on there. That's why I didn't have anything more. With that being said, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries. The rezone is approved.
Thank you, sir.
Public hearing is closed. We'll move on to item number 10. First, we'll go to regular elected officials and department heads. Give them an opportunity first, and we'll move on to 10.1. Are there any elected officials or department heads who would wish to speak at this time? Hearing none, I'd like to point out, I have a feeling you showed, last time I ran into you, you said you wanted to speak to the commission. That all occurs in the very beginning of the meetings. The opportunity is given to the public to speak to the commission. So I would ask, seeing in the audience, that the commission would give them time after the meeting today, if they would, to speak with them individually, because I know that's why they took the time to come in here. I bumped into them elsewhere. With that being said, no other department heads or elected officials. Item number 10.1, wastewater facility in Belfair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to take this opportunity to provide some information to the other commissioners and to the public, because we're not able to meet without noticing, and any public meeting would, even a telephone call between us would be a public meeting. I had called our director of waste management and utilities, Brian Matthews, last week, and I asked him if he would look into the public facilities that are in Belfair and give me an idea if they have been connected to the wastewater system and the feasibility of connecting them to the wastewater facilities. As you know, I've long felt, and I think we share this concern, that the more equivalent residential units we can get to on the system, the cheaper the cost will be for everyone. And there are great benefits to hook up to the system, especially for properties that have a large number of individuals there, or large meetings, or depending on the soil conditions. So Brian has not had a chance to get back to me. We had a holiday, and I understand that, but I wanted to inform the other commissioners that I did ask that. Of course, we have Belfair Elementary. I think Feller Center is hooked up, but I don't think it's paying yet. I think there's still charges that I don't believe. Maybe Brian can address that, but I don't think they've paid. But Belfair Elementary, I don't think is hooked up.
It isn't?
Belfair Elementary?
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
We had that conversation prior.
Yeah, and I think that's in doubt, in my mind anyway, but let's find that out. Belfair Elementary, of course, they have a lot of students and staff there, obviously, almost year-round. Feller Center, then North Mason High School and Hawkins Middle School, of course, they're not hooked up, they're off the system, but the possibilities, I think now as we get into the bond has been approved out there for a new facility, the large on-site systems that have been used in the past, and that's they call that the LOS system, large on-site, which are not approved by the county but are approved by the State Department of Health. I think those are those type of users are would be a wonderful addition to our system, and a lot of that depends on the terrain, the pumping, what could happen. So I wanted to let you know that I've inquired with Mr. Matthews about those issues, and hopefully we'll get some more facts.
There has been some work done on that that I can share. When Tom was here, the Hawkins Middle School and the high school are both outside the urban growth area, but there was discussions with them on trying to get them on board. The cost for hookup originally would have been a lot more expensive, but we're looking at this new way of low pressure systems. It's a lot more cost effective. I just don't know if it's too late or not, but that is a lot of ERUs. Do you know of anything statewide that would allow us to?
You have the public. Didn't you pass a bill that allowed essential public facilities?
Yes.
And the school is considered an essential public
To be able to be hooked up, but can we request that they be hooked up?
Oh, I see.
Well, I think so. The bill that you talked about was, I can't remember the year, probably 2007, something like that. It was the Zion Camp, the facility that's very close to Lakeland Village. And when they were making improvements to their camp, the church camp, they were assured by the county that they could hook up to the system. Well, after making all the improvements and running the line to within a foot of our line at the wastewater facility, they were told that they could not hook up because they were outside the urban growth boundary. So we did pass I believe we passed the bill, or perhaps the department just gave us the okay to do it. I'll have to look and see if that bill was actually passed and signed. I think it was, because I remember, I don't know, you got to be old enough to remember Lloyd Cooney.
Oh,
anybody remember Lloyd
Channel
Cooney?
7.
Okay, Channel 7. Well, Lloyd was such an interesting guy. I think he's still alive. He's well up there in age, but he was the editorial guy for Channel 7 for years. And each channel, 4, 5, and 7, had their dueling editorials each night on at 6 o'clock. But Lloyd took an active interest in this issue with the church camp, and helped to pass the bill. And everybody, when he testified, everybody recognized the voice. They didn't quite recognize the face, but everybody recognizes Lloyd's voice. Anyway, I digress. But the ability of a facility of that size to hook up, even though they're outside of the urban growth area, I think is clear in the Growth Management Act, because they're essential facilities. And I think the Act always didn't want to preclude the hookup of those essential facilities because they are necessary for whatever we do in education or corrections or water treatment, whatever it is. So I'd like to, anyway, to have Brian take a look at that and give us some ideas, because these are huge users, they're government, but they're huge users.
There's two more. There's the
Yeah.
Belfair State Park and you just mentioned, or
Right.
you did, Mission Creek Women's Correctional Facility. I don't know how many that would be. That would be,
Yeah, it's big, but
Huge amount.
they've done a big on-site there after it changed from a youth facility to a women's facility.
So I've had discussions with at least two North Mason School Board members on this very issue, as well as their outgoing superintendent, who's no longer there, and they were very non-committal about whether they would
Yeah.
hook up into the sewer. So I suspect that it'll always be a cost issue, you know, what will save them money. And perhaps we can make it lucrative enough that it would, or affordable enough. But the other side is, if there is a requirement somewhere in the law that they be hooked up, we should find that.
I don't think there's a requirement that they should be, because they're outside the urban growth area. I think it's permissive, they could hook up.
Okay.
But I think the conversation is great to have, because they're in the construction phase or planning phase for some the new high school. That's huge, and why not all talk together about this and see if there's some possibilities of getting new equivalent residential units and better service. You know, the wastewater was put in there for environmental reasons as well as issues of growth management. I mean, that's how, when Governor Gregoire was here, Congressman Dix, they always met down at the shore of the Hood Canal and talked about the benefits. So I think there's a real reason that the whole community had this conversation.
perhaps we can set that up for a briefing and invite them to come and speak with us, and it would be huge.
Perhaps have the architect or whoever would be in charge of that piece of it come talk to us as well.
Who's a local to top it off? So
Okay.
Ray Mao is one of the main guys there. And
If our staff could set that up, or maybe even someone with the superintendent of public instruction's office, or I always remember the name of the
OSPI?
Office
of Superintendent.
Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. Okay. Possibilities. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for bringing that up.
And one thing to touch on that, one of the people we've talked about when it comes to multifamily housing up in the North Mason area is hoping that, you know, we will have some more discussions on what to do about the system. But apparently they're believing that we will come up with a solution, and they've moved their number from 29 to 48.
Oh, good.
Units
Good.
that they're considering on building.
Good.
29 to
Tell them
48.
two more and they can get a 12-year, maybe.
Oh, that's right. No, how I forgot that. That's kind of an important.
That are affordable, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's big.
No, I misspoke. It's 50%.
Oh, 50%.
I
Okay.
forgot.
Well, we haven't
I
passed
misspoke.
that yet.
I
Anyway, have we?
misspoke, yeah.
Okay. With that being said, is there anything further? We will move on to board reports and calendars, please.
Well, I'll begin. Last week after our meeting, I attended and spoke in favor of a extension of the special use permit for Ridge Motorsports, allowing them to put in an RV park, which was contemplated earlier. The hearings examiner did indicate that he'd probably be favorable to this request, although he's still making that decision. Had a meeting of MACECOM, and then on Wednesday, the 14th, I met with Barbara Adkins on the multifamily housing resolution, and served as the alternate for the ORCA board. Found out that we still have a air quality permit required for the new municipal solid waste facility, and that's still outstanding. So I'm hoping that they'll get on top of that. I met with our public defender regarding a request and a proposal to change how we treat driving with a license suspended 3s. We're authorized by state law to have that be an infraction as opposed to going to court. We have 400 cases per year in district court on that, and that would definitely be something I think we need to talk about to relieve the caseload of our public defenders, if not just the public, the district court. And then I met with a representative from Congressman Kilmer's office, and then also met with our prosecuting attorney on that same issue of driving with the license suspended. Friday was an all-day series of interviews and presentations by candidates for our Washington State University director, and we're hoping that we can make an announcement soon. And then Monday, of course, was a holiday. And then this afternoon, I will attend the Mason Transit Authority meeting, and then following that, the Skookum Rotary Foundation will have another meeting regarding the event center proposal of a new event center to replace the fairgrounds, and I'm going to attend that over at the Colonial House. Wednesday morning's Criminal Justice Working Team, Hood Canal Coordinating Council regular meeting, and I'll be meeting with representatives, the Hope Garden Program and Community Youth Services, and then have a Habitat for Humanity board meeting. Thursday, Mason Matters, and then I'll be doing a tour of the Mile Sand and Gravel facility, and then a meeting of the Mental Health Substance Abuse Advisory Committee. And then I have a meeting with PUD Commissioner Linda Gott on Friday. And then we're back here for commission briefings on Monday the 26th.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've been in Olympia the last week. I did have several meetings with constituents about different issues, and I've referred those to our own Department of Health and a couple other of our directors, so I appreciate their work on those constituent issues. I have just a couple quick questions. First of all, Commissioner Jeffries, you mentioned you met with Congressman Kilmer. Was there any discussion about the road from Mount Rose Village to Staircase?
Yes, and actually it was with one of his aides. It wasn't with the congressman himself.
Okay.
And yes, they have been in discussion. They've been you highlighted that issue to them, and they're looking to see if there's going to be some options for asking for some appropriations for that road, the cost of the road.
Sure.
And he's feeling very positive that Tacoma Power will step up and do a major contribution towards that too.
Yeah, there is money in the agreement, in the settlement, but not enough, so that's good.
Right, so they are looking for an appropriation for that.
Okay, and then again, question, the Ridge Motorsports, how many people were present? What did you get a feeling for the testimony?
The hearing examiner was very shocked that there were no opposition, because he'd been through many hearings when their special use permit was first granted, and everybody that spoke was in favor. There were a lot of business interests,
yeah.
And he indicated that he thought that he would probably approve this. He couldn't see why not, but he needed to look at the record completely.
Okay. And the last thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned PUD Commissioner Linda Gott. I had a conversation with her at a meeting with the Public Power the other day, and the tone was that the Conservation District was interested in their building downtown on Coda Street, and if the Conservation District leased the building, they wanted to sublease to MACECOM, right, Emergency Services, and the cost of doing that was very expensive, because there would have to be earthquake analysis basically done on the building, and there was several $100,000 price tag that was out there. But I did check with the mayor about that, and then talked to some other people. And you know, it's funny how things get started and people kind of believe the first version, but I guess digging a little deeper, if you have an emergency services facility like MACECOM, in order to get FEMA money or federal money, it has to be certified as, Ross would know, what would be the term, Ross?
It has to be certified that it would be able to withstand an earthquake of a certain magnitude.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it would have to.
They called it like Title or something 4.
Yeah, there's special federal requirements of strength for earthquake. So that entered into the discussion about it, and that wasn't, I think, well known. I think sometimes people think, well, it went to the permitter, the staff, the permitting people, and they just said no. Well, there's more to it. It's a difficult issue to get around with an older building, so.
I appreciate you clarifying that. We did have a lengthy discussion at the MACOM board meeting on that very issue, and
Oh, we did.
frankly, this requirement was kind of not fully known by the MACOM director, and he's reviewing all the circumstances where this requirement comes into play and what that the full requirement is. And the surprise, just to clarify also that the city, it was not the city permitting department that highlighted this need. It was the architect that was doing the review for both parties regarding what would be needed to retrofit to serve both parties' needs.
Thank you for the information.
Do you have any on your calendar?
Coming up, I'll be in Olympia, and I'll be here for our briefings on Monday, and we have an evening meeting, and I hope to be here for the evening meeting, although I'm still not quite sure that I can make that, given a time commitment I have to get to Eastern Washington.
Thank you. For me, this last week we had the EDC regulatory subcommittee, some signing for some real estate that we had just purchased. Met with the sewer committee, met with some individual members of the sewer committee, the Belfair Sewer Advisory Committee, in working on the plan to put together a financing and growth plan for the Belfair sewer system, which I will say is much better today than it was a month ago. They really did a lot of hard work, and I'm really impressed with everything that we're able to put together. I also attended the hearing for Ridge Motorsports. I did not testify because we did not want to take a chance on having any issues with two commissioners testifying. I met with Congressman Kilmer, and he was up in Belfair this weekend, so we talked about a few things, including your issue, and I'd say Commissioner Jeffries captured about everything that he had said to me as well. We lost a long-time loving person in our community, Vivian, and sad to see her go, and attended a funeral for her. A chamber after hours for Honeysuckle Studios. The Seahawks. You know, we may have to figure out if something happens to me tomorrow, if I fall over, being an independent, we may have to figure out how to select a new person for me, because I damn near had a heart attack at that game, as I'm sure everybody else did, and I mean literally I couldn't even imagine what that was. Next week I'm meeting with the Kiwanis tomorrow morning at Spencer Lake Tavern. Legislative Steering Committees begins this week. Aside from webinars, now we actually begin the process of lobbying, so expect to be lobbied, Commissioner. I will probably see you this next week and let everybody know for a lobbying session somewhere. And then meeting with a gentleman named Dominic, who I'm not sure he wants to talk about, but I haven't seen him come in, but he's supposed to meet me right after this, and I take it it's pressing, so hopefully it's nothing bad, but we'll find out here shortly. North Mason Chamber Board of Directors, Hood Canal Coordinating Council's regular meeting, Mason Transit. We have a legislative reception, which, are you going to be there for that? Mm-hmm. So I will be seeing you at that time. Our regular briefings, North Mason Community Voice, Board of Health, and then our evening commissioner meetings.
I just also want to, last thing, attended the Shelton Mesa County Chamber Gala on Friday, and I want to say congratulations to the Peninsula Credit Union for receiving the Business of the Year award, and congratulations to Melanie Bacala for receiving Citizen of the Year, and Susanna Samuelson for Volunteer of the Year.
With that being added, we also have a mutual acquaintance that did not attend the Realtors event, but our local Realtor, Rob Drexler, was selected as Realtor of the Year. So that's pretty awesome. We have such a great community. With that being said, is there anything else to come before this commission?
Just one comment. I think there's no other place in the world where you could say that you met in the morning with the Pioneer Kiwanis at the Spencer Lake Tavern and no one bats an eye.
And it's not the tavern anymore. It's the cafe.
Are they calling it a cafe now? Oh,
a resort.
Resort. Okay. That's what happens when you move up on that level. With that being said, anything further? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
We are adjourned.
Oh, I'm going to say something.